Hello, everyone. Namaste. Heartful welcome to all of you for today's session with Elizabeth Denley. Please ready with the notepad, pen, and if you want to have a coffee or tea, and just enjoy the session with Elizabeth Denley. So over to you, Elizabeth, sister.
Thank you, Shubhangi. Hi, everybody. Good to see many of you back again, which is nice. Hopefully some new ones as well. So today we have a fairly deep day. You may get a bit spacey and contemplative in the session. It's not a very lively session, but starting from next week, things will change a bit. We'll go into more human dynamics and how we live things out. But today we're dealing with one of the essential values. That's one of Babaji's 10 principles that we've been speaking about. So let me just share my screen with you. And you let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, visible.
Okay, great. So you probably remember from the last 4 sessions now, we start in the 10 principles with practice. And we looked at 3 elements of practice that he considers as vital for our self-transformation. The first one being how we meditate in the morning, how we sit, where we sit, the space we create, the atmosphere, all the structural things, how our mind is, etc. The second thing is how we fill our hearts with love in order to practice. Really, really important aspect. And then the third one, how we set a goal and how our meditation works around that goal. So he's set the scene. He's told us what we need to do if we're going to use a meditative practice to create heartful living. Now in principle 4, he moves to what we would call an essential value. Something which isn't practice anymore, but underpins everything. And in fact, this particular one, principle 4, is the value that when Babaji once asked his teacher, Lalaji, what's the most important thing out of all to remember in a spiritual journey? And he said this, principle 4. He said, this is the one above all else. If you use that as your guiding principle, you will be heading in the right direction. So it's that critical. And so here it is. We've got 2 essential values. We had 3 practices, 2 essential values. First one, simplify your life to be identical with nature. So that's what we're going to focus on today. It's very deep. It's very, what to say? I mean, it's not something you can easily grasp, but we're going to work on it together. Even Babaji said it's difficult, and he never says that. He always says things are simple and easy. And this one, he said it's quite difficult. So we'll do what we can to try and get into that space where we understand simplicity and simplifying our lives. But first of all, let's check in like we normally do every week. So for those of you who haven't joined before, what we do is just simply close our eyes, sit comfortably, be as relaxed as you can, close your eyes, check into your heart. Just rest there for a few moments and witness what is happening inside you. See if you can just go deeper into your heart so that you connect with your center and you feel that stillness within your heart. Rest in that space for a few moments. And if anything else is going on the periphery, don't worry about it. Let all that pass by like clouds passing in the sky. And take this moment to center yourself in stillness. If you want to, be like elastic or like you're bouncing on a trampoline with your mind. Go down to your center, to the center of your being. Come up to the surface. See what's going on there. Go back down to the center of your being, or in, if you like, or up, whichever direction you see it. Just notice, witness the difference when you go deeper and when you come to the surface. And then see if you can get them to be in sync with each other. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Now, I'd like you can write this in the chat. You can evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is restless, active, distracted. 10 is still, centered, in silence. Just note where you are right now in the chat. Shubhangi, I can't.
Yes, sister.
It's okay. I can see the chat now.
Okay.
Just wasn't showing. Okay, Kavita's given an 8. Calm and focus. Nice. 7 to 8. We'll see how we go as we progress through this particular principle, because it should have quite a profound effect on us. But now we're going to start with a different type of check-in. This one we're going to do with our eyes open, with our journal, notepad, and pen. So this is very subjective. This is your own experience. And this is something that we won't be sharing, but unless you want to, of course. But it's very much for our own understanding of ourselves. So first question for you to answer in your journal. What does simplicity feel like? And when you finish a question, if you finish it before others, you can move on to the next one. You can all read the screen, I'm sure. So Anand's written a very practical answer. We don't have to stress on something. Yes, it's very true. But Anand, go deeper. Keep going inward and see where it takes you. So, second question, what does simplicity look like when you see it in art, in nature, visually? How does it impact you visually? Third question is, what does simplicity sound like in music, or again in nature with sounds, or the way people speak? Fourth, what is simplicity in science and mathematics? That's a more intellectual question, but still, it's also there. And last, what is simplicity in nature? Okay, do people need more time with these? Anyone can raise your hand if you need a bit more time. Okay, let's carry on. I mean, it's worth trying to understand how you see simplicity in yourself and in the world around you. So now I'm going to look at what other people say about it, because it's there across so many different aspects of life. So Henry David Thoreau was an American philosopher, spiritualist, one of the romantic group from the East Coast who really promoted spirituality in the US. And he said our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify. How many of you can relate to that? I certainly can. How often do we get pulled away from the simplicity of our being by what's going on around, by the detail of what's going on around in our lives, by distraction? Leonardo da Vinci, the very famous Italian Renaissance man, artist, engineer, scientist, musician. His comment was that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. What do you think he means by that? What do you think he means by sophistication? Simplicity is sophisticated. Anyone? That's worth thinking about because that's very relevant to what we're going to talk about. Then Lao Tzu, the famous Chinese, again, spiritualist and philosopher, manifest plainness, embrace simplicity, reduce selfishness, have few desires. And Ying has written in the chat that he also said, do nothing and do everything, which is a very nice way of putting it also. Then Isaac Newton, the famous English scientist who discovered the laws of thermodynamics. Nature is pleased with simplicity. Frédéric Chopin, the Polish pianist and composer, romantic composer, simplicity is the final achievement. After one has played a vast quantity of notes and more notes, it is simplicity that emerges as the crowning reward of art. And finally, Babaji, the Indian sage, saint, spiritual master who wrote these maxims, who was the intercommunicator for these maxims from the source. He says simplicity is the very essence of nature. It is the reflection of that which existed in the absolute in a latent state. So, in other words, what was there before creation is what he is saying is simplicity. It promotes growth. It can be aptly described as the quintessence of the ultimate. So we go from the very worldly, our life is frittered away by details, simplify, simplify, all the way through to simplicity being the very essence of nature. So this is a big topic, and it's been valued by artists, musicians, scientists, philosophers, spiritual teachers throughout human history. So here's something from Babaji, from this fourth principle. This is what he says that's, it takes us to a whole new level of understanding, as is often the case with him on every topic. We think we understand it at one level. We read Babaji's works and we go, whoa, I'm nowhere near the deeper understanding of this. So he says that simplicity is our essential, original nature. It's there within us. It's our essence, in other words. So it's not something we have to look for outside. It's there within us. It's associated with purity of consciousness. It's the reflection of that which existed in latent form before creation. It's the base of all existence, where stillness and silence prevail. So simplicity exists beyond thought, beyond consciousness, and beyond form. It's associated with the origin from which all forms burst forth at the time of creation, with the center of all existence. So already we're going somewhere which is a lot deeper than just getting rid of the details in our life. We're talking about something which is the core of our being, at the core of our being. And so if we go back and we look through the yogic literature, for example, we can look at what Patanjali says in his Yoga Sutras, which is one of the definitive texts on yoga. So Patanjali says that on one hand, we have our spiritual practice, which is what we've talked about in the last three principles. It's about purifying the subtle bodies. And then in parallel, we have character refinement. And that's all about simplification, the removal of behavioral complexities. And so Patanjali explains it. He has one important sutra in the first chapter on this, where he says, Abhyasa, which is our practice, Vairagya, Byam. Vairagya is to let go, renunciation, Tat Nirodha. So stillness, the state of Nirodha, is attained through spiritual practice and letting go of all the mental modifications or colorings or complexities that we know about. These two things. So we've dealt with spiritual practice up until now. Now we're dealing with this principle, which is the value that we're going to move forward with. And after this, we're going to focus on the behaviors. And essentially, this is the science of yogic psychology, which is, by most people's reckoning, the most sophisticated psychology in the world still today. Of course, the West has added a lot to psychology, but this framework, this understanding of practice and then dealing with letting go of all the mental colorings is the science of yogic psychology. In other words, we're moving back to simplicity. So this is what Babaji says. This is principle number 4. Simplify your life so as to be identical with nature. Now, this is a direct follow-on from the 3 principles on practice, but especially from principle 3 on the goal. Because when your goal, complete oneness with God, is the simplest thing possible, we need to simplify our lives in order to get there. So what Babaji says is God is simple, so the methods that will take you there have to be the simplest. If you're using complex methods to get to simplicity, it's not going to work. And when you're not in tune with this, your own creation develops complexity. When you let go of your own creation, then the magic can happen. So that's why in all spiritual systems, there's this concept, there's this idea of surrender, of saranagati, of letting go, of bowing. We spoke about this in principle 2 on prayerful yielding of the heart, filling the heart with love. And it's the same here. Surrender is the key to simplification. Now, this word is very loaded, this word surrender, as we spoke about before. It's not something that we all feel comfortable with. The ego reacts to it, our own principles that the ego attaches to. We think we know better, we think we know right. We don't like to let go and just be like a newborn baby, willing to see where things take us. But actually, this is the key to simplifying, to letting go of all the complexities that hold us back. And when you read Babaji's commentary on principle number 4, there is a part of it where he's talking about this idea of going back to the center, to the source of everything. And he says that at the time of creation, different vibrations came out from the source. There were vibrations that were divine in nature, that were absolutely, unchangeable from the source itself. And then there were those that could be altered, if you like. They came down in a heavier form, in a grosser form. And they came down into our being, into the being of other creatures. And they led to physicality, to having bodies, to having minds that were able to develop habits and behaviors, etc., etc. And so they had the possibility, because they were changeable, to be tampered with also in a in a way that took us away from our center, took us away from the source. And so what Babaji said was that the difference between the two kinds of vibrations is that the human ones possess this perversive trend where they could get caught up in complexities and knots and have us basically with mental modifications, having us off balance, off center. And then the latter vibrations, the divine vibrations, which were completely unchangeable from the origin. So these were emanating out, are still emanating out today in these forms where some make us human, make us complex, others take us back, if you like, to the center of our being, to simplicity. And this is really interesting because now what I want to do is I want to focus on one of the heartfulness practices which deals with this. And this particular practice is called heartfulness cleaning. For those of you who've never done it before, we'll do a small walk through it, a guided walk through it. But I think you'll realize with this that it has a profundity, a depth to it, which we don't often understand what it's doing. So the first half of the heartfulness cleaning is to remove the heaviness from the human vibrations. The second part, the heartfulness cleaning, is to replace those with the divine vibrations. And when you look at it in this way, and I've been doing this practice for 35 years, and once I understood this concept, the heartfulness cleaning took on a whole different perspective. Suddenly it was not just about removing samskaras. Suddenly it was about this practice which we do every day is literally taking us from human being to divine human being every single evening. We're removing the human changeable vibrations that have come from the center, and we're replacing them with divine vibrations from the center, from the source. Every single evening. Imagine what that's doing to your being in terms of helping you with spiritual progress. It's, it's just an absolutely revolutionary practice in that sense. And I don't think we sometimes realize what profundity there is in these simple practices. And of course, it's so simple. As Babaji says, we need a simple practice to reach a simple goal, the simplest goal. So what I'd like to do, and some of you are even more experienced than me in this, you may have been doing this practice every day of your lives pretty much for 50 years or so. But still, let's do it today, all of us, as if it's the first time we're ever doing it and the first time we're ever understanding it and being able to really feel these two parts, the part where first we're removing all the complexities that have accumulated in the human vibrations, which have come down into us from the center. And then after that, we're going to fill that vacuum that's been created in our hearts and in every atom of our being with the divine vibrations. So sit comfortably and close your eyes. Put down your pens and paper and phones and everything else. Sit in a really comfortable position and relax. So for the first part, imagine all the impurities and complexities are leaving your entire system. Let them flow out from your back in the form of smoke. From the area between your tailbone and the top of your head, your whole central nervous system. Remain alert during this process and try not to brood over any thoughts and feelings that arise. Simply remain a witness to your thoughts. So again, imagine all the impurities and complexities leaving your system from your back in the form of smoke, from your tailbone to the top of your head. Remain alert and simply a witness to your thoughts and feelings. Gently accelerate this process with confidence and determination. If your attention drifts and other thoughts come to mind, gently bring your focus back to the cleaning process. Let this continue just for a few minutes. As the impressions are leaving from your back, you will start to feel lighter. And when you do this at home on your own in the evening, as your evening cleaning, you would continue this process for up to 20 to 25 minutes. But for now, you'll end it here and carry on to the second part of the cleaning process. So the first part is the longer part, removing the heaviness, the complexities from the human vibrations. And now we move to part two. And you would do this at home when you feel light within yourself. Feel a current of purity coming from the source, entering your system from the front. This current is flowing into your heart and throughout your system, saturating every particle of your being. These divine vibrations are now filling your whole being. This current of purity is returning you to a more balanced state, so that every particle of your body is emanating lightness, purity, and simplicity. And as you finish your cleaning process, have the conviction that the cleaning has been completed effectively. And then gently open your eyes when you're ready. And make a note in your journal of how you feel at the end of that cleaning process. I know it was only short. It wasn't a real cleaning. It was just a guided practice just to help us understand this idea of the vibrations. But still, make a note of how you feel. And again, if you can now write in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, how you feel in terms of 1 being a state of restlessness, activity, 10 being stillness, centered, simple. See if anything has changed after that practice. It may not have. You be true to yourself and witness exactly how you feel. There's no right or wrong answers in this, because we're dealing with personal experience. Okay, Nanji's written 9+. Simple, simple. Lightness and simple. 9, purity. So we did no more than I made 7-minute or so practice there. And look at the effect it has on your being. Imagine now, visualize doing that every day for 20, 25, 30 minutes. With that amount of awareness of the vibrations in your being. Christine has written, feeling a sense of deep connection with my higher self, purity. These practices really work. I mean, just to share with you, today we received a research report from the HeartMath Foundation about some samples they took, some measurements they took during the Global Spirituality Mahotsav on the Sunday morning satsang, when everyone from all different religious and spiritual groups had all come together from across the world to meditate together and sit for this Sunday morning meditation. And the HeartMath team measured the level of coherence during this session. And it was off the scale. It was as good as it could get. Once the meditation started, it just grew and grew and grew and grew. So whether we actually know what's happening to us is irrelevant. Whether it feels nice in meditation is irrelevant. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the thing is, these practices actually work to create that simplicity in you. So, you know, if we go back and think about what all the great scientists and composers and spiritual people said, they all said that simplicity is the ultimate, if you like. And all we need to do to get there are these simple practices. Just a few minutes of cleaning just now, and it changes us. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we get caught up in life and we see it almost like a daily routine. We forget the profound nature of these practices. But every principle that Babaji created is associated with a set of practices that bring it into being. He doesn't just tell us to do this, he gives us the methods to do it. And that's what's so astounding. We can do this together and feel the effects of it. So that's really all I want to say today, but I'd love now if we can turn off the recording, Shubhangi. I'd like to hear from all of you about your own, in the beginning I asked you what spirituality was for you, how you visualize it in art, how you hear it in sound, how it applies in science, etc. I'd like to hear from you about what you feel and whether your understanding of spirituality has changed during this, of simplicity, has changed during this